I am on the road to AF15. If you want to hear the details, stay tuned for the video. Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. I have been thinking about this video and this video series for well over a year. It was about that time that I first decided that I was going to go after AF15. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you know that I am a Spider-Man fan. I collect a lot of stuff, but I am really focused on Spider-Man, and I'm really focused presently on putting together a run of Amazing Spider-Man. And while that will remain the primary focus for my collection, I am very excited to kick off this video series to kind of illustrate how I am going after AF15, because for me, that is the pinnacle. That is the Grail of Grails for a Spider-Man fan. I have Amazing Spider-Man #1, #2, and then many of the other low numbers, but I don't have that first appearance of Spider-Man, and I really want it. And so what I want to do over the course of this video is to some degree or another highlight what my approach is for getting AF15, and as best I can to kind of explain my thought process. And this isn't necessarily to say here's what you should do to get your own Grail, but what I'm trying to do is to explain at least my thought process with the hope that there are some lessons that can be learned either from the mistakes that I make or from the things that I learn and do correctly that will enable you to actually get that Grail that you are after, whatever that book happens to be. And if it's an Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing Fantasy book, even better. So here we go. What I've been doing over the last year or so is pulling together a series of books that meet certain criteria. And what my hope and my plan has been is to pull these books together to put me in a position to basically sell these books to buy AF15 or to trade these books to get AF15. And one of the things that I've kind of learned in talking with other collectors that have books like Amazing Fantasy and many of these other big grails is that trading for that type of book might not be the best approach. And so that's why I've kind of morphed from thinking about a trade to going more towards selling these books in order to put cash on the table to get that Amazing Fantasy. So what I've been doing is identifying books that meet some criteria. And these are loose criteria that I've kind of come up with myself. And those criteria are a book or a character that I'm not necessarily in love with. And I'll show you some examples of what these books are in just a moment. But a book or a character that I'm not necessarily in love with. And I don't feel like I am sacrificing something important from my collection. Because one thing that I'm not a fan of, and this is again for my collection, not what you should do, but I don't like to trade books that I like or sell books that I like to get another book that I like, right? To me, that just doesn't work, because if I really like that book, why would I sell it to buy another book, right? The question becomes, did I really want the first book in the first place, right? So what I'm trying to do is basically sell those books that I'm not in love with, that I'm not wedded to, and that I don't feel like I'm sacrificing something from my collection. So titles, characters that I'm not really interested in. In some cases, I've been able to find books, keys that are undervalued. And so that is a great place to be if you can find a great book that people really want and you're not paying full F&V, you're getting it undervalued. That's always a win. Another thing that I've been doing is trying to identify books, getting them for fair prices, with the hope that those books would actually increase in value. And again, I'm going to show you some examples of some of these books in just a moment, but those are some of the loose criteria that I've been using to kind of guide my buying habits over the last year as it relates to this AF15 path that I'm on right now. So let's take a look at a couple of the books, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in detail as we go along. So one of the first books is a good book, but again, it's one that I'm not necessarily wedded to, and it's this one right here. Iron Man #1. This is a really nice book, and I actually picked this book up as part of an auction purchase almost a year and a half ago. Did not pay a whole lot for it. No one else was bidding, so I was able to get this book for a reasonable price. And I feel like the book is in solid shape with a press, a clean, and a solid grade. This book could help me to get AF15. The next book, Submariner #1. I actually have 2 copies of this. I actually like Submariner, but I have 2 copies of it. So letting go of one copy won't necessarily hurt me because I still have a solid copy in the collection. Next up, and this is this next set of books I think is a really solid set of books, and it's a set that is going up in value, but I was able to get them before the prices really got out of control. We have a lower grade Fantastic Four 48, and it's a solid copy, probably a 2.5 to maybe a 3. You can see that there's a large crease right here and there's a little tear down here, but other than that, the book is in solid shape and it is complete. To go along with that, I have not just 1, but 2 copies of Fantastic Four 49. And this, I actually really like this cover, probably of the 3 Galactus trilogy books. This is probably my favorite. And so I actually have 2 copies of this raw. I have a 3rd copy that is actually graded and I believe on the wall behind me. But again, books that I can let go because I also have Fantastic Four 48 on the wall behind me. So I can let this one go without feeling like I'm sacrificing something from the collection. And to go along with that, Fantastic Four 50. Have 2 copies of this. This is a lower grade copy that I picked up maybe 8 or 9 months ago. And again, a solid copy that could put me down the road of being able to get Amazing Fantasy 15. So the next stack of books, this first one, again, multiple copies of this. Tales of the Teen Titans #44, the first appearance of Nightwing, the origin of Jericho, and also Deathstroke. Have 2 copies of this. Again, can't let it go, no problem. I have multiple copies of this next one, Wolverine #1. This is actually the limited series, fantastic story arc that I recently reread. I have a couple of graded copies, and then I also have 2 raw copies of that. And I should say that these next set of books, starting with the Teen Titans, these are all higher grade books, and I think that they're again going to come back at relatively high grades. So next up, the New Mutants #87, and I actually have 3 copies of this that are raw, and then I have several other copies that are graded already, including one on my front wall. The next set of books that I'm going to show you are all books that I have multiple copies of, both here and also in the room. They are also really high grade books, and they're probably going to be the first set of books that I send off to CGC to have pressed, cleaned, and graded. And they're going to be the first set, of course, that I'm going to turn around and sell. Many of these others that are off to my left will be staggered. I'll be sending them off a little by little over the course of time. And part of the reason for that is, as you guys know, getting books pressed, cleaned, and graded is expensive. And so I want to start with those books that I know can move relatively quickly for high dollar amounts before getting to some of the other books that I've already shown you. So to that point of a book that is hot and I think can go relatively quick, we have the New Mutants #98. And again, a really high grade copy of this book. And then I also have 2 additional copies of this book. Both of those additional copies are newsstands. And then the last set of books that I have are 3 copies of Amazing Spider-Man #300. Definitely a hot book, and I have 1 copy of this behind me on the wall that is triple signed. That will probably stay in the collection regardless of what happens with these 3 copies. So let me just say right now that none of these books are for sale right now. When I posted up some of these books a couple of weeks ago on Instagram, I got a series of messages from people asking if I was interested in selling the books, trading the books, etc., etc. As of right now, none of these books are for sale or for trade. My goal is to send these books off to be graded and then to receive them back. And at that point, I will do a video to show you guys what the grades are of those books, and then those books will be made available for sale. And my goal, honestly, is to maximize the potential with each one of these books. So I probably won't be able to do any deals as much as I would want to. I need every penny to get the best possible copy of Amazing Fantasy 15 that I can afford. So I think the sweet spot for me when it comes to Amazing Fantasy 15 is going to be a 1.8 to a 2.5. And I was recently offered a copy of a 1.8 and I had to turn it down. The timing wasn't quite right, and I had a desire to execute upon the plan that I put in place. And that's part of what prompted me to actually start this video series now. And my hope is that I'm going to be able to pull the trigger on this book sooner rather than later. But there's a lot of variables at play, right? My ability to get these books graded in a timely manner, my ability to sell these books profitably, my ability to find a good copy of Amazing Fantasy within my range for a fair price, right? There's a lot of variables at play. But my hope is that I'll be able to make this happen sooner rather than later. And what I'm going to be doing along the way is doing various updates for you guys on where things are. And I'm going to try to make them substantive updates, not necessarily, hey, my books were just received by CGC and the books are now in the mail coming back to me, right? My goal is to make them slightly more substantive than that. But only time will tell again how this whole thing unfolds. So I remain optimistic that this plan is going to be successful. And as a backup, in addition to the books that I have sitting off to my side, I have some reserve cash that I've set aside, and I also have another set of books that I could potentially sell in order to get AF-15. Now, these books to the left of me are essentially the muscle and the fat that I don't mind parting with. Some of the other books might hit a little bone. And that's because in many cases, I only have one copy of these books, or it is a character that I really like. But my point is, I have a backup plan in the event that what I have set here isn't sufficient to get me a really nice copy of Amazing Fantasy 15. Now, with that said, I wanted to take this opportunity to actually offer up to you guys an opportunity, or a chance, I should say, to actually get a pretty sweet book of your own. And I am specifically talking about Detective Comics 880. And here it is. This is the Virgin foil cover of Detective Comics 880, a 9.8 white pages. It was signed by Jock and also by Scott Snyder on 10/9/18. This is a really nice copy of this book. I am in love with this book because it is shiny, it is nice, and it also has two signatures down here by two awesome creators. And so if you are interested in entering the drawing for these books, all you have to do in the comment section is enter hashtag long live the bat. Hashtag long live the bat. You can say whatever else you want to say in the comment, but as long as you have that in there, you will be entered into the drawing that will actually take place this coming Sunday at 7:30 on my preview show, Ready, Set, Go. The criteria, all straightforward. Enter the comment, be a resident of the United States, be a resident of Canada, or have a mailing address inside the US. And then I also ask that you be a subscriber of the channel. That's it. It is relatively straightforward. And I definitely want to wish you guys good luck in this week's giveaway that is sponsored by Go Collect. As always, if you need to reach me, feel free to do so at Regie Collects on Instagram and regiecollects@gmail.com. Take care. Be sure to visit our sponsor at gocollect.com.